If you've never watched hockey or you're new to hockey, the best 2 months or so of sports in North America begin tomorrow, begin on the 12th, Wednesday the 12th. It's the NHL playoffs. I don't think there's any way to argue it. This year, after last year, 0 of the 7 Canadian teams making it to the playoffs. This year there are 5, which brings a whole different aspect to it. I think it's great for hockey. I think it's great for the game. Let's run through some of these if we could. I'm gonna go through these fairly quickly. But the Wild and the Blues, Minnesota Wild, St. Louis Blues. I think the St. Louis Blues are the dark horse team in the playoffs right now.
Well, they are, and there's been an expectation there in St. Louis for the last number of years. They've been on the cusp with the Kings eliminating them there a few years ago on their path to the Cup. They've got some great players. Goaltending always seems to be a question there.
Yeah, but Jake Allen had a good second half of the year.
He did have a good second half, and they seem to have gotten on a little bit of roll at the right time. At one point there, you go back a couple of months, it was kind of touchy whether or not they're even going to make the playoffs. So, I think from St. Louis' standpoint, they have to find a way to have some success this year.
Yeah.
If not, I think it's almost like you have to take a look and maybe blow things up a little bit, maybe go a little bit of a different direction. They've kind of have taken that course with some of the players that they've removed out of that lineup. Minnesota, now you look at the year that they had, Bruce Boudreau did an outstanding job with them. He's always had the knock of not being able to get the job done.
Right.
And bring home the prize. So he's got some pressure.
He was in Washington where that happened.
He was in Washington. Then in Anaheim, and he's got some pressure put upon him. And, if St. Louis can get the upper hand early in that series, that might be all that they need in order to go from there. But we were with the Kings there. We were there maybe about a month ago, and at that time there, he could do no wrong, Bruce Boudreau, as anybody on the Wild. They were walking on water. And,
and then all of a sudden,
if they take 1 or 2 on the chin early in that playoff round, that's going to be an interesting series. It might be the goaltending of Jake Allen that takes them, over the hurdle there. I don't expect it to be a high-scoring series. Both teams have a lot of, defensive structure in their game, so it'll be interesting. But right now, I'm going to actually say I'd favor the Blues.
Yeah, I'm going to favor the Blues there, too. Watch Tarasenko for St. Louis. Watch Mikko Koivu, an exciting player for the Wild. We go to my beloved New York Rangers. I think my beloveds are going to be, first of all, I grew up in New York City, big Rangers fan. I had my time with them. My dad, who grew up in Connecticut, was a Habs fan, and I went to the Montreal hockey camp when I was tiny, and it was really more exciting for my dad than it was for me. But this is a good series. Henrik Lundqvist, the Rangers goalie, franchise goalie, historically good goalie for New York. He seems to be on the back nine of his career a little bit, and he's never had good fortune up in Montreal.
It's a tough series. You look at the goaltending matchup from both sides, Price against Lundqvist, 2 of the more established, proven goaltenders, and 2 guys that can play under the pressure. Neither one has been able to capture, what they're looking for in the Stanley Cup. I think that's a really interesting, series. I think the Rangers have a little bit more depth.
I agree with you, Daryl. But when you look at the fact that Galchenyuk on Montreal is playing on their 4th line, that tells me that they're just as deep, right?
Well, it does, but maybe the strength of their top end guys aren't as good as maybe what the Rangers have.
Right.
I think the style that the Rangers play. Montreal likes to play that kind of like that freewheeling, real open style of game. And I think if the Rangers can play it a little bit tighter, a little bit more checking, everybody's got to be committed to playing that. I think they might grind that out. I expect that to be a long series, a minimum of 6 games.
Right.
But right now, I would probably favor the Rangers in that.
Wow. So I'm going to go Montreal, which I can't believe I'm actually saying.
Your dad would be proud of you.
Yeah, my dad would be really proud of me. Rick Nash, he's got to show up for the Rangers. He's a player to watch. Matt Zuccarello, obviously a fun player to watch. And then Max Pacioretty on Montreal. So between the goalies, Carey Price and Henrik Lundqvist, those are really the players you're going to be focusing on. The Nashville Predators, we're skipping around conference to conference here, just taking you through it. Nashville Predators and the Chicago Blackhawks. Chicago Blackhawks, the expectation is that they're going to win this series. Nashville has had a funny year, but here's the thing, to me. You look at the 2 goaltenders. I'd rather have Pekka Rinne from Nashville than Crawford on Chicago. That could make the difference, couldn't it?
It could make the difference. A goaltender can win a series if it's a tight series. Chicago, I have a difficulty betting against Chicago just because of what they've accomplished and the way they've accomplished it. You know, you look at the core of their team, you know, the 6 players back in the blue line and Keith Seabrook up front with Kane, Taves, and, you know, and then you put Hossa in that mix and, you know, and then the goaltender Crawford. I mean, that group has been together through all of this. And for whatever reason, they seem to be able to elevate their games at the right time.
Right.
Now, there's no guarantee. I don't think you can get a better support player than a guy like Panarin. You know, you look at what he's done in Chicago, you know, back-to-back 30-goal seasons. You know,
and nobody knows his name. Right? He's an anonymous player, really.
He's an anonymous player, but he's a difference maker.
Yeah.
So I still have to favor Chicago there, but if the series were to be won by Nashville, it would have to be because of Pekka Rinne's play, and he's got the ability to be able to do that. He's a big presence in the net. He takes up a lot of space. He can deal with the traffic in that area, and he's got some experience playing against the players that we just mentioned, all the top-end players. So that'll be an interesting series, but I still have to favor Chicago.
Yeah, and guys you're going to watch there, I mean, in Chicago, Jonathan Taves, obviously, you know, one of the, I would say, you know, I don't know, who would you say? Would you say Patrick Kane is one of the top 10 players in the NHL?
I would. I don't know if there's too many players that can handle the puck with the speed and finesse that he has. I mean, in his career, you know, well over 700 games, over a point a game. So I think that speaks volumes for the type of player that he is.
Filip Forsberg of Nashville, 16 goals in his last 30 games, and I think one of the most exciting, likable, entertaining, and watchable players in all of hockey is PK Subban, who just had his first year in Nashville. It was a pretty good season, and I would recommend watching him play hockey because he's a fun guy to watch.
And he's going to have to be at the top of his game. Like he's going to have to lug the mail. You know, Nashville doesn't have as much flair offensively. So they're really going to have to rely upon a guy like him. You know, you remove Shea Weber from the blue line, the big shot from back there. So he's got to pick that up. He's going to have to take his game. He's had a solid year, but he's going to have to take that game to probably his game to a career best in order for them to get past that series. He's going to have to log between 26, 28 minutes a night. You know, he's going to have to play. He's got to keep his composure as well. Team like Chicago, they got a few agitators that might look to get underneath his skin. So he's going to have to, you know, retain his composure as much as he can. He's got to stay on the ice. He's got to be a player instead of a sideshow.
Right, which I think is, you'll watch that and you'll see exactly what Daryl's talking about. We move to Toronto, the Leafs and the Caps. I think you have one of the most exciting young teams, and you have the team that is, you know, first of all, we both say the Hawks are going to win.
Correct.
We're both on the Hawks in the last one. Leafs and Caps. I mean, we've said this year in, year out. The Caps are going to win the Stanley Cup this year, but this year I think they are.
This is as good as probably going to be as good as it gets for them. I think when you look at them, just the subtle little changes. I think when they brought in Barry Trotz as their coach, I think that was a very significant move, and it's taken him some time to kind of get it exactly the way he wants it. I think he's gotten everybody to buy in, led by Alexander Ovechkin, that the personal statistics aren't, you know, first and foremost. Adding guys like Justin Williams, you look at Shattenkirk coming in there late in the season, the goaltending that they have. So I think they're poised to take this next step. Now, the Toronto Maple Leafs, you know, you look at that team, amongst their rookie core, 8 rookies this year, they compiled over 200 points as a group. Matthews, you know, 40 goals on the season. I mean, these guys are a team that remind me a little bit of our LA Kings back when we played the Oilers. You know, the expectation for them is obviously not great. Everybody expects Washington to win. But this could be a little bit of a surprise team. I wouldn't take them too lightly. I still don't expect them to win the series. I would expect Washington, because of the poise that they have, to be able to come out on top. But I think Toronto's going to give them a little bit of a push. I'd like to see Toronto grab, if not the first, one of the first 2 games.
See what happens.
Just to kind of turn the switch and just kind of wake them up a little bit. But I don't think there's going to be any having to wake up Washington. I think Washington's been dialed in. We played them in the latter part of the season here in Los Angeles, and at that point there, you could just tell the attitude. They changed the way they were approaching the game for the way they did the year before in order to prepare to have success now at this time of year. You know, a little bit longer practice, more attention to detail in those practices. So I think their team is very focused. There's no way Barry Trotz is going to let them take Toronto lightly, but great to see the Maple Leafs in the playoffs, and this is going to be, you know, just a wealth of experience for this team moving forward. This is a team that probably in a couple of years is going to contend for the Cup. So.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting actually, because if you're new to this, the Maple Leafs have been a tortured franchise for a very long time. Brendan Shanahan coming in, kind of taking over. You have to say he's done quite a good job there. And Austen Matthews, an exciting player. Young players around him. Martyr, I mean, you have to look at those guys. Freddie Anderson, the goaltender. He's a question mark. He's kind of been, he plays really well, but he's been a little bit hurt. He's gotten hit, dinged a couple of times. Braden Holtby in the back for the Capitals. But yeah, as Daryl was saying, Alexander Ovechkin is the featured player here. He's the guy that people should be watching. I went to that game you were talking about by myself, which I don't go to a lot of games by myself just to see Ovechkin play, because I hadn't seen him play in a while, and it was just, he's a thrilling guy to watch. He didn't play that well that night. But yeah, so then we go, so you know, I'm not going to go to Ottawa, Boston. I'm going to go to the Pens and the Blue Jackets, because I think the Capitals are going to win that. I think Daryl does too. They're going to play the winner of the Pens and the Blue Jackets. That's going to be, I think, the roughest series in the first round, because Columbus is going to try and manhandle the Stanley Cup champions, who are playing a little bit hurt right now, and they have lost Chris Letang, a defenseman, for a while. I think this is going to be. I think they're going to butcher each other, and whoever Washington gets, should they beat Toronto, it's going to be easier for them.
It should be a little bit easier. That's probably that series there when you look at it. And you go back a couple of weeks when they were teetering, going back and forth, who was going to get the home ice advantage. Potentially, both those teams, if you look at it, you might pick to win the Stanley Cup. Yeah. And then with Washington, that would be three of the teams, you know, that you definitely have, you know, in your mix there. So it's going to be a tough path. I'd like a little bit more the way Pittsburgh's going into the series. I think Columbus is kind of, I don't want to say limping going into the series. They got a win the other day, a come from behind win against Toronto, but I don't know whether it's enough. The last couple of weeks, they've been a little bit off their game. About a month ago, I may have favored Columbus going through that. So with the experience, I'm still going to lean a little bit towards Pittsburgh, but would not be surprised through Tortorella being able to get that team fired up. Right. And again, I think it comes down to the early part of the series. If Columbus can get themselves off, again, I think it would send a message amongst themselves and to the Penguins. Penguins missing Letang. Last year, he played just about 29 minutes a game in the playoffs. So that's a huge piece missing out of the lineup. Yeah, and Sidney Crosby is the guy to watch. Who do you like watching most on Columbus? Is there? Well, I think you know, there's a few players there. You know, Saad is a heck of a player. Great acquisition from from Chicago. There, he's got experience as well. So he's a guy that I think will elevate his game. You know, Wenberg back in defense, a youngster. Yeah, he's had himself a heck of a year. So they've got some depth. They've got some interesting pieces. Like I said, Tortorella's done a great job at bringing that group together and getting a lot out of them. Then you got to look at their goaltending. Yeah. Exactly. We have two more to go. Ottawa and Boston quickly. This is really a coin flip. You know, Boston's played really well. Todd Marchand just had such a great season. Ottawa, though, at the end of the year, just kind of putting it together. They looked like the best team in hockey for once in a while. Yeah, they did put it together, and you know, they got some solid contribution from a lot of different guys. You know, you look back at the blue line and Carlson, a guy that can log a lot of minutes. You know, lead the attack. And with Boston, you know, Marchand, he's had a great year, and it goes all the way back to the World Championship before the season started. He got the big contract and everything, and you know, he's going to play with that edge. And whether or not, now he's got to be able to contain that. If I'm the Ottawa Senators, I would look to get underneath his skin, because he's a player that he'll push back. Yeah. And at what most recently just happened with the suspension that he just had, he pushes back maybe too much this time. It might result in a little bit more of a severe thing. But if I'm Ottawa, that's, I think, the key is you've got to get to him and push him. And they have a good power play, Ottawa, too. So if Boston takes these dumb penalties or just penalties, Ottawa knows that's how they can capitalize on this. Yeah, and they have to take advantage of that. I think this is a series where specialty teams will play a big factor. Yeah. You know, with Boston, you know, and they've got some key components on the power play as well. Marchand, you know, like Bergeron, you know, those type of players, you know, even big Zdeno Chara with the shot and things back, you know, back in the blue line. But Ottawa's got some skill up front, and, you know, they can pick you apart, and they can make you change your game if they have an effective power play.
What do streaks matter? Boston can't seem to beat Ottawa. I mean, there's this sort of do they matter at all, or does that end on the 12th of April?
Well, I think when you get to the playoffs, things change. Definitely change a little bit. I think there's mental edges you can have on a team, but it takes just one small thing that could change it. So you look for somebody to be a difference maker.
Yeah.
And when it comes to playoffs, sometimes it's a third or a fourth line guy, an unexpected guy to rise to the occasion.
Yeah.
Big save by a goaltender. Sometimes it's a fight. But you look for something to kind of change that. So if you're a team that has not had a lot of success, and to be another in the next series we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about that again. You have to find something to change, because the personnel, for the most part, is not identical. We look at the turnover in the NHL now, like, the Kings organization or franchise going back 50 years going into Montreal, I think they got like 10 wins in 50 years. I mean, none of these guys played, more than 7, 8, 10 years ago. Right. So you have to get that little mental block out of you. So I think it's the way that you approach it. And I think the coaches today have a factor in that you've got to find a way to play a game within these kids' heads and just to distract that, to get it going.
And actually, there are two more series. There's the Ducks and Calgary, right? Calgary has not won in Anaheim in the last 25 games. So if Calgary, before we get, what's your pick in Boston and Ottawa there?
You know what? I'm going to go with Ottawa.
Yeah,
I think I'm going to side with Ottawa here.
Okay, all right. I got Ottawa too. Calgary and the Ducks. I think if Calgary wins Game 1, it totally changes the entire, focus of this series. I've seen the Ducks play lately. They're good. Cam Fowler is hurt. A big injury. He was hurt by Mark Giordano, who plays for Calgary. But at the end of the year, Calgary was playing some really good hockey.
Yeah, that's
or the sort of middle to end of the year.
Yeah, it's an interesting series, and because of that winning streak, it's not as much that Calgary wins a game at the beginning. It's the message that maybe the way it affects Anaheim, that all of a sudden maybe the tide has turned. I mean, Anaheim goes into the playoffs, a heck of a roll. They're 11-0-3 in their last 14 games to close out the regular season. So they got a lot of good things going for them. Depth and scoring. Jonathan Bernier net outstanding. At the end of the season there, one of the reasons why they were able to put that together. Ryan Getzlaf has taken his game to another level. I mean, he's up top. Corey Perry, very slow start, got things going. They have some more experience in that. Calgary's a team that you look at the balance in their scoring. 12 guys over 10 goals or more each. They got goaltending this year with Elliott. And they get contribution from back in their blue line. So a little bit of confidence if Calgary can go in, and whether Game 1 obviously would be the best one for them to grab. But if they could grab Game 1 or even get a split right off the hop, I think it becomes a different series. Right now, I'm going to say it's Anaheim series until Calgary can win a game in that building.
And it's fair to say. I mean, it's fair to say that Anaheim could win in 7. I'm going to say that it's Anaheim not winning. I think Calgary is going to take this series. I think Brian Elliott's experience in St. Louis and the goal in a really good playoff last year, I think that makes a difference this time. But, I want to be the guy who said who picked Calgary. Finally and quickly, Sharks versus the Oilers. The Oilers have Connor McDavid, the youngest, most exciting player in hockey, a first-round draft choice, a really prodigious forward, scored 100 points this year, going into an older team in San Jose. This, I think, could be their shot for San Jose. What do you think, Daryl?
I'm actually leaning the other way a little bit. I'm leaning a little bit towards Edmonton, just because of the fact I don't like San Jose's game the last month. Had we gone back to the earlier part of the season, I thought San Jose, Brett Burns was doing an unbelievable job. Even his numbers have fallen off. Can that old core of players, the Thorntons, the Marlows, they've had respectable years, but can they take that game now in a bump and grind? I like the additions that the Edmonton Oilers have made. Milan Lucic going from the Kings to there, give them that, not only the ability to be able to play, still put pucks in the net, but it brings you that grit that you need in the playoffs. And then you've also got Patrick Maroon, another big, heavy body, Cassian. So they got a little beef in their lineup along with the skill. And, Connor McDavid right now, I think he's trying to make a statement. And in order for San Jose to succeed against Edmonton, they're going to have to contain Connor McDavid. Now, that's easier said than done, because he comes way back in his own zone. He generates that speed. So he is so difficult. This one may come down to some goaltending, but I think I'm going to say that Connor McDavid and his Oilers are going to come out.
For the record, I have them as well. I have the Oilers doing this. I teased the Sharks there. One very quick, interesting thing. Martin Jones, the goaltender for San Jose, Cam Talbot, the goaltender for Edmonton, they both sort of studied under two of the great goaltenders in the league now, Jonathan Quick for Martin Jones and Henrik Lundqvist for Cam Talbot, and you can see it sort of paying dividends. And that's why I agree the goaltending is going to be the thing. Your final two, this is I'll give mine because I'll give you a chance to think about it. I have Washington beating St. Louis in the Stanley Cup Finals.
I got Washington, Chicago, and if Washington gets to the final, Washington wins.
All right, it'd be nice to see Alexander Ovechkin get it. And then quickly now, I know this is something we'd like to do a little tease at the end. It's hockey is famous for its nicknames. Everybody in hockey has a nickname. What are some of yours that you? Sported along the way?
I had a couple of crazy ones. I mean, Reg was one of them that I picked up here in Los Angeles.
Reg, yeah.
And it come from a guy that his name was Daryl Edderstrand, so they couldn't get used to saying the name Daryl, so it became Reg. So I just took that one on. Right. And then when I played junior hockey, they called me Motorboats because I was a quick little skater,
right.
And then I used to like to lift a weight, so they called me Atlas and those kind of things. But you understand where I'm coming from, Cactus Chin?
Oh, wow, Cactus Chin. How about that? Look at that, Cactus Chin. Wow, this is pretty exciting. I was always Shorzy, but I'll take Cactus Chin. I'm going to throw 3 or 4 names out there, see how quickly with the name alone you can do it. This is a tough one because there's never been anyone named Jesus who has played in the National Hockey League. Jesus Godoy.
Jesus Godoy. Huh, that was a good one.
That's
Jesus
a good one.
Godoy. That would be, I would just call him question mark.
Okay, good. We have Dave Kohler.
Dave Kohler, DC.
DC, okay, well that's cool. Aaron Wysocki is a Penguins fan. He runs all our our social media and everything. Aaron Wysocki.
I'd go with Shockey.
Socky or Socks? How about Socks? Socks could work, right? J.R. Jackson.
Most probably people just try to be just JR.
Oh, JR.
Or maybe even JJ.
JJ. Okay, all right, that's
or Stonewall.
Good. Yeah, Stonewall. That's right.
All depends on the player. That you got to have you learn the character a little bit about the person.
Of course, that's right. Lastly, Jason Rubin, who's sitting across the room here.
Again, that could be a JR again.
Yeah, well, he could be Ruby too, right?
He could be Ruby.
Then it could turn to Tuesday.
Or the producer.
He could be Tuesday, or he could be the producer, right? Tuesday could be a thing.
I like it.
All right, perfect. Daryl Evans has been kind enough to sit in with us here on TYT Sports, where we're doing What the Puck. The NHL playoffs start imminently. Watch them. Learn this game. It's the best sport out there. Francis Maxwell, I know you're watching. I know you hear me, but hockey's better than soccer, my friend. Michael Shure for TYT Sports. We'll see you soon.